I'm Brian Van, SportbikeTrackHere.com, and today we're going to break down the M4 full titanium exhaust system install on our 2018 Suzuki GSXR 1000R STG project bike. With this project, we are building essentially a replica of the race team that we're partnered up with, M4 ECSTAR Suzuki, their super stock slash now Superbike that's being ridden by my favorite racer, the man with the mullet, Jake Lewis. The system he has on his bike is the same one that you see on this one here. Full titanium tubing with that kick-ass carbon canister. If you happen to have a GSXR 1000 or the 1000R and you're looking to do a full system, remember, they work directly with the race team with this to make sure that they're getting every ounce of weight savings, all the power they need. This also sells at a great price, so you're going to get all the benefit of that collaboration that they've had on this motorcycle for the past 2 seasons, which is awesome. Look at what we're replacing, okay? Here's the can. There's a lot of memes out there on the internet, man, about how big this thing is, no question. It's also pretty heavy. As I get ready for my next motorcycle stand video, I'm just gonna work with this, okay? Because this is 23 pounds that I'm holding here right now. 23 pounds on our shipping scale. Bottom line is, that's just what it takes to get past the emissions and all that. I mean, that's just how it is at this point if you're gonna ride it on the road. This system is developed for closed course operations. There's a lot of benefits that M4 has when designing a system that's not meant to be used on the road. If you choose to use it there, that's absolutely and entirely up to you. So weight savings, we went from 23 to 8.7. I had to use a calculator because the drop was so big. That is 14.3 pounds in weight savings. Okay, we've got a whole install here for you every step of the way. It comes with a race bracket. So if you want to eliminate the passenger pegs, that is included. You don't have to buy anything additional to do that. If you want to leave your passenger pegs on, it has the hardware it takes to do just that. Exhaust valves. That stock system has one back here, and it also has one up in the header. The exhaust servo is up here in the tail. What's really cool with this system is M4 includes a machined aluminum part that you bolt onto that servo motor after removing the cables, so it eliminates the need for immediately flashing it to get rid of the check engine light or installing a servo buddy. Okay, those are things you can do down the road if you want to eliminate that servo and save a little more weight. But right out of the gate, you could put it on and go out and ride and not have that check engine light. Now let's talk dyno numbers. Stock, total stock on pump gas, no tuning, they were able to get 178 from this pipe. Remember, every dyno can be a little bit different. What we are going to do with this project and that Ninja project we're doing is at some point throughout the season, we're going to go and try and dyno more than one system on the same dyno on the same day to just do a little comparison. But this right here, I think stock number was somewhere around 171, 172, and they got as much as 178 without doing anything. That is already a nice gain up front. Not to mention, you're eliminating a whole bunch of ugly, because Suzuki, I love you, and you got to do what you got to do to make the motorcycle road legal for those that are going to ride it on the street. But man, that looks a whole bunch better, and the weight savings is also epic. Like I said, if you want to see the entire install, just go ahead and stay tuned. I'm going to show you every step. Okay, let's go ahead and let's baseline the stock exhaust note from our 2018 Suzuki GSXR 1000R. We've warmed the bike, obviously. You don't want to rev a cold motor. Spools up fast, but that thing is really quiet. And let's, I love the bike. This is a gorgeous motorcycle. That's the biggest muffler I've ever seen. Okay, when installing the full exhaust on this 2018 GSXR 1000R, you're going to be eliminating the exhaust valves. Got one here, and there's one up in the stock header as well. When you do that, you're going to take the cables off. There's a few different ways to deal with the exhaust servo motor back here. You can flash the bike to disable that. You can put a servo eliminator device in there that you plug in and eliminate the whole box to turn the light off. We don't have that right now. We're not going to flash it right now, but with this system, M4 includes a little part that essentially bolts on to the servo itself. You leave it plugged in, and it has the servo thinking everything is cool, and you've got no check engine light. So we're going to jump in and do that right now. Okay, I've got a 7mm socket here. I'm going to break loose the fastener. It holds the cam on that servo motor, and that's what we're taking off. And while we're in the tail here, we'll go ahead and fish all those cables through too. Like I said, this is a cool little add-on that I've seen with some of the full systems from M4. I think most commonly it's the Suzuki. You know, if you're not gonna, flash or having a servo eliminator ready during that initial install, this just kind of gives you a way to hold that off for a while, even if eventually your intentions are to do that, which we will at some point. And then we can eliminate the servo and lose a little more weight, declutter the tail a little bit. Okay, got a retainer clip here for the cables. Pull that out. Like so. Cable, cable. Okay. And these will slide down out of the bottom of that servo itself. Okay. Now we jump on that piece from M4. We're going to use the same fastener that held the cam on. Okay. And that bad boy is just literally going to slide on right here. We'll bolt that down. I haven't seen this part from any of the other exhaust brands. I think the only place I have ever seen or used this was on an M4 system. Okay, make sure you get that snugged up. Okay, now the cables themselves, let's go ahead and take this opportunity to get those out of the tail section here. Routed right up the side of it. Really that simple. And then you can go ahead from this point and button up the tail. Okay, stock slip-on removal. Really basic here. You know, all this stuff has gotten, in terms of slip-on installation, very simple. If the kit you are installing has new hardware, always save your stock stuff. It's great quality fasteners. You can always find a purpose for them in the future. And then you've got your clamp down here. You do not have to remove the bodywork. We just have it off right now. It's just part of the project that we've been doing. We're filming multiple things now at one time. Just go ahead and loosen the clamp. Wow. Suzuki, I love you. I love this bike. I don't love this muffler. It's huge, and I'm sure this has got a ton to do with emission requirements. Okay, now moving forward, okay? Got the muffler off, that's easy, all right? For full system installs that are gonna have you doing the header as well as the stock muffler, you need to remove the anchor for this secondary exhaust valve that actually goes up into the header. First time I've had a bike, I think, that's had that. Actually, I'm gonna save this retainer and that bolt. These things are pretty handy. We've got our exhaust servo. We already showed you how on the where the exhaust servo motor is. Okay, it's up under the tail here. There's a few different ways to deal with that after, and we'll focus on that as we move through the install. To get the cables off, you need to release the clips behind the rear set. I'm gonna try and do that without pulling the rear set. Just get a flat bladed screwdriver in there. Hit that release tang. Looks like we're successful. Now these are just gonna come right down. Like so. We're gonna leave the one up front connected still and try and remove the whole header with that on there. Now, anchor points for the header. We've got a mount bolt here, and we've got the oxygen sensor on the other side. We'll go deal with that. And then as you move farther forward, of course, we're gonna have the flange bolts up here for the headers. The oil cooler is in the way. We're gonna wanna remove the oil cooler, being that both hoses are on the same side, and there is a braided rubber portion here in between the two crimps. I think I'm gonna be able to loosen that from its mounts and rotate it out of the way enough to get the header off the motorcycle. Got the exhaust sensor over here. I typically do not unplug them. What I do is I will twist the harness. The harness is really long for this particular one, so I kind of try to wind the wires at the same time as the sensor in the same direction I'm twisting it. Never had any issues. When I reinstall, I'll show you what I like to do. I like to kind of wind it up and then unwind it as I install. So now we've got that removed. Just the one mount bolt on the other side, and now we're going to tackle loosening up the actual oil cooler itself so we can get some room to work up here at the header. Okay, so for the oil cooler itself, got a couple of fasteners here. They're all 10s. It's important to note too, you want to be careful with the fins on the radiator and the oil cooler during installs like this. You do not want to make contact with it. The fins they're pretty delicate, and when you compress them, the air does not flow through them as designed, so you lose a lot of the cooling capabilities, which is certainly not a good thing. We go to the other side now and get another fastener on the top. There's one down here at the bottom. A little bit of Loctite from the factory on these. Yeah, I like what I'm seeing there. That's going to work out pretty nicely. We're also going to take the bracket off the bottom of the radiator that is used to support the oil cooler. A little tighter over here, but still able to get to it. So. Okay. Now you can see this is really starting to open up in here real nicely. Okay, a lot of room up here. Radiator hoses are going to allow that to swing out quite a bit, which is nice. probably come up here. The very top of the radiator on each side, there's a fastener. Mount it to the frame. Pull that. And you can see, all right, we got tons of room now. I feel pretty good about this. At this point, depending on your comfort level, you know, if you're really afraid of getting tools or something in contact with a radiator, you can put a piece of cardboard or something over it, not a bad idea. That way if you do rub it, you know, you hit the cardboard, you're not gonna run into the fins. I feel pretty good about the amount of room that we have here, and I'm just gonna roll with it as is, and we're gonna start taking the fasteners out of the flanges now. 6mm internal hex. You could use an Allen wrench here if you want to. I'm going to use this. Note too, I'm kind of keeping my hand in between the radiator and the tools, like, just to kind of try and protect it here. Okay, I took both the upper mounts for the radiator off. Went and got a couple of bungee cords. I found a great purpose for those front reflectors, man. Use that to secure the bungee to pull back ever so gently on the radiator and hold it there. It's gonna give me a little bit more operating room. It felt a little bit tighter than I really wanted it to be. And now we're gonna go ahead and jump in here and just get the last couple of fasteners that I was unable to reach. Altered my tool selection a little bit. I'm gonna go with a 3/8 extension. I got a 3/8 universal on there. Very important to remember, I still have that mount bolt in the back hooked up, okay? Before I pull the last fastener on this header, I'm gonna come back here, take a look, see if it looks like, what you don't wanna do is pull all the fasteners out of the header and just have the thing slam forward and using that as a pivot. So we're gonna get that loosened up, leave it still in there, and I'll support the header as I remove that last fastener to avoid creating an issue such as the thing just falling down, crushing my radiator. Now we could slide that back in. That'd be one way to do it. Could also take like a T-handle. So I'm just go a little closer in diameter and just slide that through. We'll easily be able to just pull that out when we're ready. You can see lots of thread locker on that. Okay, now I have 2 fasteners left. I am supporting the system with my free hand as I pull that last header bolt, okay? And as I thought, it's ready to come down. That thing's got some girth, baby. I'm gonna go ahead and grab it more in the middle. Pull that T-handle I had in there. just rock it right out of here the whole time, being really aware of the radiator and the oil cooler surface. You could work out with this, especially this. Okay, when installing the M4 full system on your GSXR 1000, it's really important that once you have the system removed, you remove all the stock exhaust gaskets. These are held in there pretty tightly, to be honest. I had to get in between the back of the gasket and the exhaust port with this pick, gently loosened it up, and then was able to pull it out. So here's all 4 removed. The M4 system comes with spigots, machine spigots, and high temp gaskets that fit into a machined channel like that. Make sure you put all those in there. I also cleaned off the exhaust port surface on the cylinder head itself. We'll go ahead now and, using the stock fasteners, get these installed one by one. Your flange goes over, it needs to be over the ridge. Right? There's a machined ridge that it fits on that spigot. It's got a fairly tight tolerance, so get that slid on there. Okay, and when you bolt it down, you want to make sure that it's on there, obviously. And then one by one, we'll go ahead and slip these in place. You want to make sure that you maintain pressure so the gasket stays in place. And then put your fasteners in. What you'll do with each one is just run them down finger tight, nice and even. Really important too that you have an even gap between the cylinder head and the bottom of the flange on each side. One of the most important things to note is right here. Notice how that flange is not all the way up against the machined flat surface on that spigot as intended. I've got it in there a little crooked, so I need to adjust that so it is perfectly flush against that flat surface. So I'm going to do that now, and then we'll come back and show you final torque. But before you torque any of them, I want you to inspect each one of them and make sure you don't see a gap like that. If you do, correct that first before we apply any torque to the spigot flanges. Okay, now we're ready to torque these down. I'm going to do this in stages. The most important thing to note is do not tighten these so much that you're just bowing that steel flange, okay? If you have the flange bowing heavily, you are tightening them excessively. Okay, with this system, M4 has supplied a little tube of high temp anti-seize. And what you want to do, I like to put it on a rag. You really don't want to touch this stuff with your bare hands. You want to apply just a thin film inside of each slip joint. This is going to help you assemble it, and also long term, it helps to ensure you'll be able to get this thing apart if you ever need to when you're servicing the motorcycle. Kind of do that to all the joints. Now, these downpipes slide over those spigots we have bolted on up there. Each of the downpipes are numbered. There's a corresponding handwritten number that is on the collector as well. What I want to do now is not permanently install it, but I just want to slip this up in here, and I want to identify what hole on the flange we're going to use for that spring, okay? That is going to help me a ton, because then I'll be able to actually install that spring now in the flange. Just makes life a little easier. So I'm going to go through and do this for each one of the downpipes. That was number 4. Got number 3. Looks like that's going to be the same one. Okay, now as you can see, I've slid all of the downpipes into the collector. I'm going to go ahead and install the springs on this now. Got all my exhaust springs from the flanges that will connect to the loops here on the downpipes. Those are all in place. Make sure the pipes are slid in all the way, real important. It's going to make getting this on the spigots that much easier. Okay, if you've done all that up front. Springs, you can put these on if you have a spring tool from another system that you've installed, like I do here. You can use that. Honestly, 9 times out of 10, you'll see me using just a pair of ordinary side cutters, which work just fine as well. Once we get all the springs put on, we're going to go over to the bike and begin the ever fun process of installing the downpipes on the spigots. Okay, now I'm going to take the header and the collector. After I have them all put together, I'm going to slide these up into position. And number 4 downpipe's got to go around that support bracket. I come over here and just very temporarily use some of the supplied hardware and install it just so it can support the pipe for me here in the very back. Okay, now make sure it's resting. It's resting not up against the surface of the radiator or the oil cooler, but it's actually resting on the upper ear of that mount. Just get this nut started. Right there. And I'll go over the other side and begin to start fitting the pipes. Okay, now we need to slide these up on each spigot. And you know, you can clearly see here they kind of all need to start at the same time. This is not always easy. Okay, a lot of trial and error here. Patience. If you got a friend, now's a good time to buy a 6-pack and ask them to come over and help. That's encouraging. That's already 2 of 4, and you'll see that as I begin to try and start the others, sometimes you'll lose what you just got. Got them all started. Now I'm supporting it from the top. I'm just loosely, slightly tapping on the bottom of the collector pipes to get them to go up on the flange all the way. Okay, they are for the most part all the way up. Go ahead and grab that spring tool now and start installing some of the springs. And once you get the springs on there, typically you're able to coax up just that last little bit. I'm gonna move the position of this one. I don't love what I chose there. And like that one there wasn't all the way up, so now with that spring on it, just gonna kind of tap with my hand. You can see that thing just literally walked right up there. Having that little bit of pressure from the spring really helps. That is all good. I've got everything wiggled up in place. Springs are all on. Now we're gonna put the mount for the actual pipe itself here to the frame. There's a spacer. Goes on the other side of the grommet. We're going to use the stock washer. This is a bolt supplied by M4. And we'll kind of manipulate the collector just a little bit. Here's your nut. Okay, I'm not going to tighten that up all the way right now. A little snugger than it is, and we'll continue building the system. The full system includes a race mount bracket that eliminates the foot pegs. We're going to go ahead and take advantage of that now and remove the OE pegs, passenger pegs, from the bike. M4 supplied hardware for the race bracket. This is a place you could use some thread locker if you want to. We're not going to. This is a project bike, so there's going to be a lot of things installed, removed, swapped out, so for our purpose we won't. There is still quite a bit of the residue from that factory thread locker in there, which will help hold these tight. Run them both down flush, and then go ahead and you can put some final torque on these. Okay, we've got the mid-pipe. We really want to watch any of the connections that run, downhill, how much anti-seize you put on there. The more you put on, the more likely it is that as it gets hot, it could run down a little bit on you. That's not going to look great, so try to really minimize the use of that. Get this rotated into position here. Thin film on the inside of the canister. Slide that over the mid-pipe. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and start pulling the springs on. It's just going to help make sure that we have proper tension as we get the system mounted up. It's pulling it in the right directions. Got one there, connects the mid and the collector. Come over here, and we're going to have two that connect our canister to our mid, one on the top and one down on the bottom. Still do not have the strap on. I just said that, didn't I? The canister strap is not installed. Okay, get the last one on here. Like so. Okay, using the race bracket, the hardware we're going to use back here, we're going to use this fastener, that dress washer. The bracket, or the strap, is going to be on the outside of the race mount bracket right here, both ears, okay? And then of course we'll have a nut on the back side right there. So let's get the hardware ready. I found with this particular canister strap, you see this is a pretty robust carbon strap, okay? A lot of material. The very first time you put it on, they're usually a little to the tight side, okay? So what I like to do is I'll kind of get this in position where it's going to go, and I like to hold some pressure against it and begin to rotate it around and push the ears together. like so. Then I'll bring it up and around. So just kind of get it started moving in that direction. So that's all normal, a little bit of pressure there. Get that nut started. Check everything. Grab a 6 and begin to torque. And I really will kind of torque slowly here. Kind of wiggle a little bit. Allows that canister strap to kind of slide around into just the right position. Let's go ahead and get everything torqued up. We'll go over to the other side of the bike and we'll work on the oxygen sensor. Okay, M4 supplies a plug for both exhaust ports they put in this pipe. Okay, we're going to be reusing the stock sensor right now, so we're going to plug off the larger of the two in the back. When down the road, as we finish this project, it's possible we may change what we're running up here and utilize something back here that's going to allow us to tune to a higher level. Like I said earlier, to reinstall the sensor, notice how I'm just winding the harness in the direction opposite that you'll spin it to tighten it. Kind of get it to threads to start here. And as I tighten it, the harness will begin to unwind. Like so. And realistically, there's nothing wrong with that. I've done it a million times, never had an issue. And remember, on these bikes, these project bikes we've done over the years, I've had some bikes that have had multiple systems installed. Reuse this rubber grommet that acts as a bumper for the stock bodywork. They have a bracket welded on the pipe here. You can use this system, this full system, with the stock passenger pegs. They send hardware to do that. What we showed you was removing that and running with that full race bracket, of course. You can have a little additional harness here for that oxygen sensor. Don't just leave it all hanging down here. It's really close to the pipe. Let's secure this up here. Just clean that up a little bit. Just gonna force it up higher. Put some pressure back on that. Okay, that's all nice and cleaned up. Now we can remove the bungee straps from the radiator and the oil cooler and put all that back together. Okay, before you ever start the bike, WD-40 on a rag, clean rag, wipe the whole system down. That's gonna get all your fingerprints off those tie pipes, or even stainless steel if you went with stainless. You need to do that because if you start it with all those fingerprints on that pipe, they're gonna burn in, it's gonna look nasty, okay? So wipe it down first with WD, and then follow up with a clean rag to get as much off of it as possible before you start it. You do this, it's going to really help minimize or totally eliminate fingerprints on the pipes themselves, and nobody likes that. Okay, well, let's start with, I think it's pretty clear which one looks better. System's on, motor's warm. You know, we usually reserve this for my little buddy Max, but this is my bike, man. sounds good, doesn't it? Full system, okay? Questions we've been getting a lot of lately. Is this street legal? Well, no, technically this is not street legal. This is developed for closed course operation only. After you purchase what you choose to do with it, that's up to you. Fuel controllers, flash tune, that kind of stuff. Do I have to do that? Well, you know what? No, up front you don't have to do it, but to get all the performance benefits out of it, throttle response, every last ounce of horsepower, yes, it is a good idea to do that. I'm gonna go ride the bike this weekend with STT at Grant, and I'm gonna have a heck of a lot of fun on it, and it's not tuned, and I know it's going to be awesome. This is our M4 full titanium exhaust install on our 2018 Suzuki GSXR 1000R project bike.